If you're watching this on Farm Logic, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because today we're digging into a method so old, so quietly brilliant, and so effective that it still outperforms many modern irrigation gadgets. This isn't a hypothetical idea or some romanticized ancient technique. It's a real, field-tested method used for thousands of years across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Regions where a single mistake with water could cost someone their entire harvest. And what makes this especially fascinating for us history lovers is that the technique didn't survive because it was quaint. It survived because it worked better than anything else available. By the end of this guide, you'll understand not only how it works, but also how you can apply it directly in your own garden, even if your soil dries out faster than you can refill a watering can. How ancient farmers learned to store water directly in the soil. The method often goes by the name Oller irrigation, though different cultures use different forms of the same idea. A simple, unglazed clay vessel buried in the soil, with only the opening exposed. These jars were not waterproof, and that was the whole point. The porous clay released water slowly through microscopic pores. Instead of evaporating on the surface or running off in a flash, the water seeped directly into the root zone, following the natural pull of plant roots. When moisture levels were high, almost no water left the jar. When the soil dried, the roots created a localized suction that drew out only what they needed. This is a completely different logic than surface watering. Instead of feeding the soil from above and hoping plants get enough before the sun steals half of it, ancient farmers created a reservoir under the ground where the sun, wind and heat couldn't touch it. In regions where rainfall was unpredictable or where irrigation technology was limited, think early North Africa, pre-Islamic Persia and rural China, this trick kept orchards, vegetables and medicinal plants alive through weeks-long droughts. Why the water jar method works better than many modern irrigation systems. The power of the method lies in its precision. Water in a buried clay jar doesn't flood the soil. It moves only when the roots actively draw moisture out or when the soil surrounding the jar becomes drier than the water inside. It's moisture on demand in the most literal sense. There is no runoff, no wasted spray, no evaporation loss, and almost no chance of overwatering. Many gardeners today struggle with uneven watering. One section gets drenched, another stays dry, and the top inch becomes crusty long before the deeper layers do. The jar method, well, it eliminates that imbalance by placing the moisture source exactly where the roots grow. A properly sized jar can maintain consistent moisture for, 10 to 20 days, depending on your soil type and crop density. Clay soils draw water slowly, sandy soils draw it quickly. Loamy soils find a middle ground, making them ideal for this setup. If you've ever battled with wilted tomatoes or tried to nurse young seedlings while working a full-time job, the appeal becomes obvious. Plants don't rely on your schedule. The jar gives them steady access to the hydration they need, even when life pulls you away from your garden. How to set up the ancient jar method in a home garden using practical steps. The method is simple enough that ancient communities with nothing more than hand tools used it successfully for centuries. If you want to try it yourself, the first step is finding an unglazed clay pot. Modern olives work perfectly, but so do leftover clay cooking pots or even broken lidless vessels from markets or thrift shops. All that matters is that they're porous and unglazed. The installation is, well, pretty straightforward. First, dig a hole deep enough to bury the pot up to its shoulder, but do leave the mouth above ground so you can fill it easily. Next, seat the pot into the soil and backfill tightly. Make sure the sides make full contact, as any gaps will prevent the water from transferring efficiently. Once that's done, fill the pot completely and place a flat stone or just a simple lid over the opening to keep insects and debris out. Once in place, go ahead and plant your vegetables or herbs within a 1 to 2 foot radius, depending on the size of your pot. Over the next few days, take some time to observe how quickly the water level drops. If the pot stays full for too long, your soil may actually be holding more moisture than you think. But if it empties in, say, 2 or 3 days, you might need a second pot, or perhaps a larger vessel. In many traditional gardens, families installed several jars at evenly spaced intervals, effectively creating an invisible underground irrigation grid. Now, how does this ancient trick boost yields while saving labour and water? Well, one of the strongest advantages of this method is stability. Plants that experience consistent moisture tend to grow straighter, with stronger stems and deeper root systems. They also produce more reliable yields, which is always a plus. Traditional farmers used these jars particularly for high-value crops that simply couldn't tolerate stress, things like melons, medicinal herbs and fruit trees. With the jars in place, they could step away for days or even weeks without worrying about crop loss. Modern homesteaders and gardeners can expect, well, similar results. A small raised bed can be completely irrigated with just 2 mid-sized jars. A row of tomatoes can thrive with 3. A backyard orchard can use large buried vessels that release moisture slowly over, weeks. The method reduces not only watering frequency but also weed pressure, because the water stays underground, where weeds can't easily access it. Even if you don't have access to traditional clay jars, you can definitely replicate the principle with locally available materials. Unglazed clay pipes capped at both ends, cracked terracotta pots nested together, or porous ceramic containers all work. The key is slow release, not storage capacity. This is knowledge worth preserving and sharing. The ancient water jar method isn't just a historical curiosity, it's proof that simple low-tech solutions often outperform complicated systems. It's a technique anyone can adopt regardless of climate, budget or gardening experience. And it's a reminder that older knowledge still has a place in modern soil. If this guide gave you something useful, make sure you subscribe to Farm Logic, share this with a fellow gardener, and help keep these old, time-tested methods alive.